Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our friends and colleagues across the Asia and Pacific region and also beyond who have joined us today for what's called the COOP Colloquium on deepening the cooperative identity, which is a collection of 21st century stories of Filipino cooperatives. We are here today with the International Cooperative Alliance's Asian Pacific Committee on Cooperative Research, or CCR, which has launched the Co-op Colloquium with this aim to start an academic dialogue on issues that are relevant to cooperative education and research. The experience of cooperative scholarship across the Asia-Pacific region is rich and diverse, and the ICA-AP CCR would like to bring these together in the Co-op Colloquium to share, inform, and learn from each other. Each iteration of the colloquium will focus on a theme, present different perspectives, and have a discussion, a multilateral discussion across the space. Of course, we will be using digital and social media platforms to promote the colloquium and have a conversation around cooperative education and research. To start the first iteration, I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Yashwanth Dongre, who is the chairperson of the ICA-AP CCR, to share his welcome remarks. Over to you.
Thank you, Mohit. Very good morning, good day, good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to welcome all of you for the first of the series of colloquium which we have planned, which is a bi-monthly series. We begin in February and then April and then 2 months later. So that's the idea we have. And I'm very happy that the first one is about the most important theme of cooperative identity. This series will begin with this and then move on to cover various aspects of cooperatives, in particular with a focus on research and scholarship. Our next program in April is going to dwell on cooperative education around Asia Pacific. I'm sure many of you will be interested to join. Again, we will be in touch with all of you. For this event today, we have our researchers and friends from the Philippines who have already, I think, moved ahead with a publication in the area of deepening cooperative identity, joining us and making the presentation. I first of all would like to welcome Professor Anton, who also is part of the Metro Manila cooperatives. And I'm sure we are going to have a lot of insights from him with his experience as well as from the publication that we have had. A very warm welcome to you, and I also look forward to a longish kind of an association with you, with the research committee as well. Very warm welcome to Professor Father Pascal. We also are going to have a presentation today from the Bayan group. Rachel Carlos will be making a presentation. She is also here with us. I extend a very warm welcome to you. We have with us Mr. Balu Iyer, the Regional Director of International Cooperative Alliance Asia Pacific, who has been supporting our committee and the activities a lot. And he himself also writes and gets into research, not just administration. And he will be, you will be listening to him a short while from now. A very warm welcome to Balu. I also welcome all the participants who have joined, who are going to join. And a warm welcome to my fellow office bearers of the research committee, and also all the others who have joined, of course, including Mohit, who has been instrumental in handling all the logistics and organization and other parts. So once again, a warm welcome to all of you. I hope what we are starting today is going to be a kind of very fruitful exercise, beginning of a fruitful exercise, and we are going to have much more to come. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all of you once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dongre. This really sets the tone of the first colloquium, and of course, we look forward to a very eventful next 1 hour of discussions on research and cooperative education in the region. With this, may I now call upon Regional Director ICA Asia Pacific, Mr. Balasubramanian Iyer, to share a keynote message on behalf of the regional office. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mohit, and a very good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Let me begin by congratulating Professor Dongre and the research committee for starting this COOP Colloquium. The committee every year organizes an annual research conference, but under his leader, Professor Dongre's leadership, this colloquium is another start which the committee is making. And this is a very important initiative and one which is going to happen every 2 months. So it will dwell upon issues which are important for cooperatives in the region and bring both an academic and a practitioner's perspective into the picture so that we can get the best of both the worlds, so to speak. Identity has been a topic at the center with the last year, the ICA organized the 33rd World Congress in Seoul, where the theme was on deepening the cooperative identity and hearing perspectives from cooperators across the world in terms of what does the cooperative identity mean to them and what does it mean, not just at a higher level, but what does it mean in practice? So there were a number of discussions, and then there is ongoing work which is happening on the identity. We wanted to get a sense of what the perspective from the Asia Pacific region was. And so we had a series of discussions with members across countries. And in fact, the first one we started was in the Philippines. And in that meeting, Father Anton Pascal was a very strong advocate of the cooperative principles, but he said we should be also putting more emphasis on our values. Principles can be defined, but then in the context, but then values we shouldn't forget. So he's been a very strong champion of both the values and the principles. And it was very interesting for us to also hear during the conversation later, after the conversation, in fact, that the Philippines has come out with a book on looking at the cooperative values and principles, especially what does it mean from the Philippines context. And it has very fascinating stories from cooperators, what it means to them and how do they apply it. And so when Professor Dongre and team were discussing about the first colloquium, we said, why don't we start at the Philippines, hear about this book, hear more about how it's been put into practice in the Philippines. So I'm glad that we are all gathered here today. And I'd also would like to mention that the ICA-AP started the COOP Dialogue, which is a publication which we have every 6 months. And the first one also focused on the cooperative identity, where we gathered perspectives from across the Asia Pacific region. So at some point, I'd like to request Mohit to share the link so that you can also read this publication. And I'd also like to mention here that the second one, which will come out in May, focuses on innovation in cooperatives. So if you all have any contributions you all would like to make to the next edition of COOP Dialogue, please feel free to reach out to Mohit or me with your ideas and your articles, and we'll be more than happy to publish that in the next COOP Dialogue. And maybe at a future date, we could look at innovation in cooperatives. That's also part of a colloquium which is being organized. So again, thank you very much. Welcome. And I'm looking forward to hearing from the Bayan Foundation, Rochelle, and then Father Anton Pascal about the book and the cooperative identity in practice in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Palu sir, for sharing about the experience of the regional office and the perspectives on cooperative identity through the various regional forums that have been arranged to understand about the perspective of cooperative identity in various parts and various regions of the Asia Pacific. With this, we now move on to learning more about our friends from the Philippines, especially the Bayan Academy, So may I now call upon Ms. Rachel Carlos, Program Director at the Bayan Academy, to please share some perspectives about the Academy and the work that they are doing in the Philippines. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Mohit. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. First of all, on behalf of everyone, the Philippines is very honored to start this series of colloquium. Many thanks to the ICA Asia Pacific and CCR for organizing and inviting us to have this platform to share our research and experience with respect to the cooperative identity. Our objective from the very start is to emphasize the importance of cooperative identity, which is such a unique characteristics of the sector, as a means to solve some of the socio-economic issues in the country. As you know, Philippines poverty incidence has been a long time problem in the country. Looking at the history of the cooperatives also, it has also been used by the government as a means to solve this issue, as a means to appease the marginalized. But as you know, if you would study the history of the cooperatives in the country, the efforts haven't been successful. So it's growing to the sector, it's growing to us, that the initiative should come from the cooperatives themselves and should not be coming from anywhere else. So we hope to use this opportunity as a conversation starter for the Philippine cooperative sector, that we need to be the agents themselves for socio-economic transformation. So some of the things that we will be sharing are in line with that objective. So before we officially start, I would just like to briefly introduce the organization. So I'm the program director of Bayan Academy, specifically on the research unit. So as a nutshell, Bayan Academy is an NGO based in Quezon City, and we envision to democratize the 3 E's, which are entrepreneurship, education, and employment through research and consultancy, education programs, and publications. More specifically, we want to be the leading think tank for social entrepreneurship in the country. And this has been because of our founder, who has really been an advocate of social entrepreneurship in the country and has even written the first social enterprise book in Asia. So among our services are researches and policies, education programs, and publications. So we've worked with corporate foundations, we've worked with cooperatives, with government sectors, and with schools in promoting the concept of social entrepreneurship and using the social enterprise business model as a means to solve the socio-economic issues in the country. So just to share, this is what I was referring to. Dr. Morato has written the first book of about social enterprise, entrepreneurship, and enterprise development way back in 1994, which was also redesigned and republished in 2019. Without further ado, I would also like to introduce Father Anton Pascual, who is the chairperson of UMMC. We would also like to thank him for giving us this amazing opportunity to research on the sector, and without his support and help, we wouldn't be able to reach these milestones. So Father Anton, go ahead.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So this is Father Anton Pascual. I'm a Catholic priest, but very active in the cooperative movement in the Philippines. I have been in the movement for 3 decades, quite a long time. And I have immersed my work in the poor in the context of development and entrepreneurship. But of course, as you know, cooperatives is very close also in the Catholic social teaching and in the Catholic Church. In our social mission for the poor, we have a special preference for the cooperative ideals as an instrument for unity, instrument for community empowerment, and instrument for social justice. So first and foremost, I would like to thank the the invitation for this colloquium from the ICA Asia Pacific, led by Chairperson Dongre, and of course the Secretary Mohit, and of course my good friend Sir Balu Ayer. Thank you for appreciating the first project of the Union of Manila Cooperatives, deepening of the cooperative identity that we thought is just God sent, because the theme of last year's ICA in Korea was also about deepening the cooperative identity. I thought we were both inspired during this time. But our context in the Philippines, why we are trying to revitalize appreciation of the movement is in consonance also with the ICA 2030 vision, before 2020, now 2030, to build up and strengthen the co-op movement globally. Now we share with that vision of ICA. And that's why in the Philippines, we promote the color that was assigned to us. I'm wearing the color blue. This is our integration shirt in the Philippines. We were told that the color of the Philippine context is blue in appreciation of the rainbow color of the cooperative as declared by ICA. In the Philippines, our integration shirt is blue. When we go to the Philippines, every time we gather the leaders of the cooperative movement, everybody's wearing the color blue. Okay, so allow me to share with you this thought. They say that when you give a short talk or presentation, the challenge is to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. Perhaps learning something new, unlearning is to correct, and be more faithful in our idealism, and relearning, least we forget. That's why I always start my sharing with the learning, unlearning, and relearning challenge every time we listen to some kind of a conference or a talk. So our presentation is about the fruit of our 2-year effort during this COVID. In spite of the COVID pandemic, we try to thrive in crisis by coming out with this resource book. We call it a resource book. It's a 2-year project, national project, a concerted effort of leaders, managers, and practitioners of the cooperative movement in the Philippines. And we call it the Deepening the Cooperative Identity, a collection of 21st century stories of Filipino cooperatives living out the cooperative values and principles. Next slide. The presentation will be in 3 parts: the project rationale, the project objectives and phases, and the key takeaways. Next slide. For the rationale, as you know, in the Philippines, how long has been the movement in the Philippines? In 2015, practically 7 years ago, the Philippines celebrated our centennial anniversary of the movement in the Philippines, 1915 to 2015. Initiated by the government arm regulating the cooperative movement, the CDA, the Cooperative Development Authority. We have a lot of celebration and conferences and activities in order to appreciate the movement in the Philippines. But after 100 years, we can say, what are the issues that are confronting us in the Philippines? We have this ideological drift, identity crisis, because are we a social enterprise? Are we a business enterprise? Or are we a uniquely cooperative enterprise? There is a identity crisis that we have to confront ourselves. At the same time, there are no regular monitoring and evaluation of our social impact. We have our businesses, but do we really have an impact in the lives of the poor, in the lives of the member owners that we are trying to serve and uplift from their poverty and helplessness? The third are the poor programs of the union that translate to weak advocacy. And it means to say that can we back yeah. In the Philippines, there are two kinds of higher level of corporations. We have the unions and federations. I do not know in other countries. The union is a secondary or tertiary organization composed of primary cooperatives, while a federation is focused on business, also group of cooperatives doing business. Union is more of an NGO. It is that which represents all types, all kinds, and all categories of cooperative. No, the union. Its primary purpose is advocacy, education and training, research, no, and promotion. Yes. Okay, and of course, cooperatives growing up in silos. These are some of the situationer in our country, in the Philippines today. Next slide. There are many organizations who would like to help the poverty in our country, in the Philippines, but we would like to define our way versus corporate way or NGO way. What we want to define is the cooperative way. Now, in being united in our social transformation agenda, we believe that the cooperative identity, which is the values and principles, these are the cooperative way, no, of doing cooperatives, no? Because there are many ways. Sometimes there's an NGO way of strengthening the cooperative. There is a government way of strengthening the cooperative. There is a corporate way of strengthening the cooperative. But what we want is to strengthen the movement the cooperative way. The cooperative way. And it means you have to be rooted and faithful to your identity, which are the values and principles. Next slide. The project objective, developing UMMC. UMMC is the Union of Metro Manila Cooperatives. It's a tertiary cooperative in Metro Manila, around 500 member primaries and around a dozen local cooperative unions. The secondary, UMMC is a tertiary, whose members are local cooperative unions. The local cooperative unions in their different cities in Metro Manila, their members are the primaries. Okay, this is the agent that facilitated the organization of this book in partnership with Bayan Academy and in consultation also with the government, CDA. Next slide. Okay, these are the program phases that I will be expounding in a little while. 4 phases of the program. Next slide. Okay, the first phase is to design and develop a cooperative ideology training program for cooperative leaders. No? Our focus to deepen the identity, focusing on values and principles, is to come out with a training program. Okay, next slide. Let's backtrack a bit. Rachel, Jan. The first part is to have a listening session with the cooperative leaders nationwide. We were able to identify 12 cooperative leaders and managers nationwide with a minimum experience of 30 years in the cooperative movement, no? And with successful track record. Let me take note. We choose 12 cooperative leaders and CEOs with minimum experience of 30 years and with successful track record. We call it, you attain billionaire status. Your cooperative reach billions of pesos in total assets, no? And you are considered a model, no, in the Philippines of cooperativism. And we gather them, interview them individually, and gather them also in a workshop to deepen the cooperative ideology, which is rooted in the values and principles. Second, we develop a training program, a learning experience. And number 3, we have the training of trainers, no, of the cooperative ideology who will cascade this deepening of the identity to our members, to the primaries and secondary cooperatives nationwide. Next slide. Okay. We interviewed the cooperative leaders, as I said, identify cooperative leaders, define and understand the values and principles. We always start with values and then principles. We don't start with the principles, then values. Values are the true north, no? What gives essence and purpose and meaning to the principles. It's the grounding of the principles in the 6 values and the 4 ethical values of cooperativism. Determine how cooperatives measure social performance and determine the pain points of the cooperatives with respect to education, training, and information. Next slide. Workshop objective: to agree on a commonly accepted set of key result areas that would manifest the practice of cooperative ideologies, to gather inputs for the finalizing of the training design of the course. Next slide. Key takeaways from the workshop. No? These are the key initial findings, no? And reflections of the workshop. Bayanihan spirit and sense of brotherhood in the cooperative movement has dwindled over time in the Philippines. Cooperatives has become more transactional rather than transformational. Second, the developmental and transformational purpose of the cooperative has been overshadowed by financial goals. No? The movement has veered away from the cooperative ideology, which are the values and principles, that it has been likened to a microfinance institution or NGO. Now, people thought that the cooperative is just an NGO, no, or another kind of corporation, or a quasi-government even, no, not a cooperative. These are the very few programs that are targeted on the most vulnerable groups in the country. The contribution of the movement to the economy is very small. I think our contribution in the GDP, gross domestic product of the Philippines, is less than 5%. Less than 5%. They say in order to have a tipping point impact, you have to reach at least 20% impact. Next, the cooperative has largely measured its performance based on financial indicators and not based on social performance. It's socioeconomic performance. Next slide. The initiatives of the movement in relation to social problems are done in silos. In the Philippines, the primary cooperatives, whose members are individuals, are kind of isolated from one another. No, they grew independent of other cooperatives. There is no cooperation of cooperatives. Principle 6 is very much diminished. No? Even in federations, no, there is no synergy, no, among the cooperative federations, working independent of each other. That weakens the sector and the movement. The movement has seemed to prioritize short-term benefits over long-term investment. Okay, strengthening the sector is a long-term investment. On cooperative insurance, the movement is being challenged to shift the paradigm of the traditional insurance business model and to create more impact on the economy, especially the most vulnerable sector. The challenge for the cooperatives, especially insurance, credit cooperative, consumer, is to reach out those who are at the bottom of the pyramid. No, we are not corporations. We have to go down to the majority of the Filipinos who are poor. Let me repeat, no? In the recent statistics in the Philippines, 25% are poorest of the poor. 25%. No? But if you include not only the poorest of the poor, but also the moderate poor, it will reach around 80% of Filipinos are really poor. This market is the target of the cooperative. Those who are in the bottom of the pyramid. Next slide. The training design, as you notice that, 12 parts, no? 12 session of the training design, focusing on the cooperative ideologies, transform cooperative leaders and governance to level up to cooperative sector's contribution to the national development. More transactional and business-centric cooperative leadership towards transformational and member-centered leadership. Bring a vision and values-based leadership from the board, management, members, and committees. Lead member-centered social impact. No? We must have a social impact by design and create higher value through business unusual leadership, business leadership. Next slide. The training design, as you noticed a while ago, ideology, identity, 12 sessions, cooperative with social economy, ecosystem, cooperative as ideology-based social enterprise, overview of the cooperative in the Philippines, especially the values and principles. And then we round down, we talk about in our 12 sessions with the cooperative leaders, self-help, democracy, equity, solidarity, training program, concern from community, leadership in Philippines context, and training of trainers. Okay, next slide. The training of trainers, aside from interviewing 12 national cooperative leaders, we also had a session with 30 cooperative leaders and trainers. These are the group, a small group that will begin the cascading of the deepening of the cooperative ideology to all the primary and secondaries all over the country. We implemented that June 16 to August 2 last year, okay, using Zoom technology, of course. Next slide. And we came out with case studies. From the 12 national cooperative leaders, we came out with 12 case studies. That is also in the book. Demonstrate how Philippine cooperatives have been internalizing the ideology, which are the values and principles. Inspire cooperatives to go back to the basic and core of cooperative ideological framework. Challenge the cooperatives to reduce poverty through the collective empowerment and cooperation of its members. I was challenging the cooperative sector that we must be conscious of the cooperative economy. We develop the cooperative economy for an inclusive Philippines. Building a cooperative economy for an inclusive Philippines, which concerns the common good of everyone, especially the poor at the bottom of the pyramid. Next slide. Of course, this is the book that we are talking about, 2 years in the making. We call it a research book. It's around 435 pages. Take note, it's around 435 pages. It's a thick book, and this is the glossary of the book. It contains the history in the Philippines, values and principles, Filipino cooperative identity, cooperative as a social enterprise, cooperative leadership, social impact, and the case studies, how we live the values and principles in the Philippines, coming from the 12 national cooperative leaders. I think we're selling it for 1,000 pesos, or around mga 20-25 US dollars. It's a thick 435 pages resource book on deepening the cooperative identity. I will try to send copies to the ICA-AP for your personal reading pleasure. Thank you. Next slide. There are notable cases when you read the book on self-help, equity, solidarity. Next slide. Autonomy, independence, and member economic participation. These are notable cases in the book that came out from our dialogue, listening, and yung focus group discussion and sharing. Next slide. So this is the last part of our presentation. Key takeaways and next steps. Okay. Our reflection. Number one, establish the viability of cooperatives as an alternative economic model towards inclusive growth and development. Cooperative enterprise is distinct from a social enterprise and also from a business enterprise. What makes it distinct is it is grounded on values and principles. Cooperative enterprise, as they do business, must always be rooted uniquely in its values and principles. It is the values and principles that defines the enterprise of the cooperative. Second, embody the culture of the cooperative by staying rooted in the cooperative identity. We must regularly evaluate ourselves if we are building the culture of cooperativism. It's easy to say that we are a cooperative in the Philippines. There are around 18,000 cooperative organizations in the Philippines, according to the government, with 12 million members. But in our analysis and reflection, we are not united. We are divided, no? Because we have not embodied the culture of cooperativism, especially the 6 values, the 4 ethical values, and the 7 principles. Third, cooperative leaders and the management must be the role models in living out the cooperative identity. What we're trying to do with the Philippine Cooperative Center, our national apex and a member of ICA, is to gather the leaders, to unify the leaders and the CEOs in the country in order to have a critical mass of leadership and CEOs that are embodying and witnessing to the cooperative identity as a way of life and an instrument for social transformation. Next slide. Reinforce the cooperative values and principles by integrating it day-to-day management operation. Day-to-day, we must be mindful, I think that's the right word, mindful of living out the values and principles, and be conscious of our actions that violates, take note, our actions that violates, no, the values and principles of cooperativism. Next, integrate a social impact monitoring and evaluation process and culture. This is very important. No? We have to design that. No? We are working with the Bayan Academy, with our union, to come out with an evaluation tool to track our application of the values and principles in the workplace. No? Are we really witnessing to the values and principles of cooperativism? We need some kind of monitoring tool. Next, reinstitute the cooperative union system by creating solid programs for primaries and secondaries. Let me repeat, in the Philippines, the higher level of cooperations, according to the Cooperative Code of the Philippines, Republic Act 9520, are unions and federations. No, federations are more business-oriented, more influenced by market forces. But unions, the unions are established in order to represent all types, all kinds, and all categories of cooperative in every city, in every province, in every region, and national. We need to strengthen the union because it is the union, cooperative union, that will ensure that we are building the culture of the cooperative way. The cooperative way is deepening the identity rooted in the values and principles of cooperativism. That is the responsibility of the union. That's why we need to strengthen the union. Unfortunately, the unions in the Philippines are very weak. Yeah, we need to revive the union because we believe that a strong movement is a strong sector, and a strong sector is a strong cooperative union. Cooperative union. Next slide. Increase solidarity through unions and federations. They have to work hand in hand. Unions and federations should work hand in hand, like walking left and right. Unions and federations has to balance. You have to balance the growth of unions and federations in the Philippines to strengthen the sector and influence the movement. Okay. Achieve growth through benchmarking, collaboration, and consolidation. Strengthen partnership with the government to help them appreciate the cooperative way. The government, we cannot get away with government because the government in the Philippines regulates, adjudicates, the cooperative sector. Our relationship with government is more of critical collaboration. Let me repeat. Our relationship with government regulating us is more of critical collaboration. What do I mean by that? If the action of government strengthens the cooperative sector, then we support that. But if the actions of the government weakens the sector because their paradigm is the government way, then we take note of that. We react to that and protest even to the point of complaining to them. You don't strengthen the sector the government way. You must strengthen the sector the cooperative way. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what is next step after creating the book? The book is part of a 5 program of UMMC, with the Bayan Academy. No? First, we would like to begin with the basic. Let us go back to the principles and foundation. To strengthen the sector in the Philippines, to influence the movement in the Philippines, we have to go back to the basics. And the basic is to go back to the identity, the values and principles, which we call the cooperative way. After that, coming out with the book, we will come out with a workshop, and then we will cascade the workshop using our trainers nationwide. The second project is come out with a the ideology training program. The next, developing a social audit. We need the social audit now in order to evaluate the socio-economic impact of the cooperative and how we are faithful to the principles and values of cooperativism. Okay, social audit, not only financial audit, but social audit, our impact to our members, at the same time, our fidelity to the cooperative identity. That is a social audit that we need to come out. The third is developing training also for leaders and managers. Leaders, good governance, and managers in the business efficiency and effectiveness. And lastly, manualization of cooperative committee operations. In the Philippines, we have cooperative committees. We have elected committees, not only the board, but also we elect the audit committee and election committee. We have the mandated committees by the government, like ethics, mediation, and gender. And we also have the board-created committees. The governance, cooperative governance in the Philippines is very healthy and thriving. No? We have the elected committees, mandated committees, and board-created committees. We need to look into that with fresh insights. No? That's why we need a manual of operation on that. And of course, as we end this sharing, I would like to end the sharing with the quote from my book. The number one influencer of the cooperative movement in the church is no other than Pope Francis. Because according to Pope Francis, he came from Argentina, and he came from a family in whom his father is a member of the cooperative in Argentina. That's why Pope Francis is a very powerful influencer in spreading cooperativism within the Catholic Church. And according to him, this great leap forward that we propose cooperatives should do will confirm that all that you have already done is not only positive and vital, but continues to be prophetic also. Therefore, you must continue to invent, and this is the word, to invent new forms of cooperation, because the warning, when the tree puts out new branches, the roots are alive and the trunk is strong, is also very valid for cooperatives. We tend to cooperativize the church in the Philippines, especially those in the grassroots. As a matter of fact, I already asked the bishop to approve the Ministry on Cooperatives and Social Enterprise Development. So this presentation is ending now, and I hope and pray that we were able to appreciate the deepening of the cooperative identity in Philippine context. We will try to send you our book so that you may read the powerful testimonies of the cooperative leaders, the trainers, and the witnesses of cooperativism in the Philippines, deepening the values and the principles of the cooperative ideals. Thank you, and God bless you all. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Father Anthony. I think it was a very inspiring presentation of the wonderful work that is being done, both in theory and practice, the whole living the cooperative spirit in the Philippines, and with this very book. I really, on behalf of the ICA-AP, CCR, and all our colleagues present here, commend the incredible work being done by the Bayan Academy and the Union of Metro Manila Cooperatives. We are doing fairly well on the timing actually, but we will have not more than 10 minutes for a Q&A round, or you could say a clarification or reflections on the presentation. So if you have any comments, any views to share, please feel free to share your hand and raise your hand, and we will make sure you can unmute yourself and make your comment. Mr. Balu Iyer has already raised his hand, so may I invite Mr. Iyer to share his remarks?
Okay, thank you very much, Father Anton Pascual and the Bayan Foundation for coming out with the book and this presentation. I'm very happy to see that you've not just left it with the book, but have next steps planned in terms of how you want to move this forward. Principle 5 talks about education for cooperative members, training for staff, but it also talks about information for the public. And I do see a lot of your action plan is focused on existing cooperatives and how do you look at the principles and values in action. But how about the general public? How do we inform the public about what the cooperative values and identity are and bring them on board? And also, how do you get this message across to young people? Because we keep talking about the need to bring young into the cooperative fold. So what is the plan to, one, inform the public, and then how do we get this message across to the younger people out there?
Yeah, thank you for that point, Bayan Academy. No? You know, first and foremost, in our reflection, first things first. Now, we must first deepen the cooperative identity within the sector, no? Because we believe that the appreciation of the ideals is not even internalized by the 12 million who are already members of the cooperative movement. That's why there is so much division, and we are not united as a powerful sector in the Philippines. That's why I keep on mentioning sector, because before we can influence the movement, we have to be united within the sector. No, and we are not united in the sector. That's why we thought that first things first, no, we must first internalize and cascade the ideals, the cooperative identity within the cooperative sector. You're talking about 18,000 cooperatives. You're talking about 12 million individual members. No? It does not cascade. Sometimes those who are attending as you said, the education, training, and the information stay in the level of the leaders and the management. It does not go down to the level of the members. And according to our my partner in Bayan Academy, Dr. Murato, he was very emphatic about it. You must also deepen the appreciation of the members on the cooperative identity. No? Because as we said a while ago, the members are only conscious of borrowing money and paying money, only financial. They never appreciate the ideological dimension of the cooperative. That's why before we go to the public, no, we thought that we must first focus on our 12 million existing members. Second, with regards to the youth, we also prioritize that. As a matter of fact, in the Philippines, we have laboratory cooperatives. Laboratory cooperatives are cooperatives focusing on the minors, no? Mga 16 years old, 17, and teenagers. We are also focusing on that right now as part of our leadership succession program. No, we develop the young people, the laboratory corps. That's why we're challenging the primary cooperatives to have their own laboratory cooperatives in their communities, in their institutions. But of course, it is the function of the union, no, the union as far as advocacy to promote cooperativism in the public. No, we have to make use of the multimedia. I think that's the next part of our cascading is use multimedia in order to inform the public on the power of cooperatives as an instrument of social transformation, people empowerment, and social justice. Okay, but our priority is to start deepening the identity to the existing 12 million members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have another comment from Professor Dongre. You'd like to share your...
Yeah, this is just an observation to the response that Father Pascal has just now given. I think it's a very important thing to to make sure that those who are in the movement believe in the movement, have faith in the cooperative identity, because we have seen a peculiar trend of a lot of cooperative leaders trying to say that the cooperative principles in fact are an impediment for them, for them in doing business, or for them in expanding or growing. On the other hand, in some of the most successful cooperatives also, there has been cases of demutualization, where a cooperative, after becoming successful, becomes an investor-owned organization. So this is a very, very peculiar trend, which says that those who are cooperators, those who are in the movement, seem to be not having full faith on the cooperative way of doing things. So while the other issue of that Balu raised, of the new generation of cooperators coming in, is equally important, I think this solidifying the faith in cooperatives among those who are already part of cooperatives, I think is also equally important. And I think a very, very important exercise that you have been doing. I mean, just a reaction to what you said.
Yeah. Just to add, no, to Chairman Dongre, no, you're perfectly right, no. I just came back to the national leadership 5 years ago, in the National Leadership Cooperative. And what I noticed is a extreme movement in the mindset of our cooperative leaders. Let me give an example. For the micro cooperatives, the small cooperatives, the mindset of the leaders are more of an NGO. No, they look for donations and grants from the government. They're too dependent on government. No, that's an NGO mentality. You look for donations. You violate principle number 1, which is self-help. You have to stand on your own. No, and on the extreme, Dr. Dongre, on the extreme, the billionaire cooperatives, I noticed in the billionaire cooperatives, they tend to be, as you said, more corporate mindset. No, they don't participate. They don't believe in principle number 6 because they're big. They're billionaires. They don't need the sector. They can live on their own. No, that's why there is an extreme mindset difference. I call it mission drift. No, the small ones are like an NGO, and the big ones are more like corporate. That's why when I came back in the cooperative leadership, I thought that we should, in my discernment, no, I thought that we have to go back to the basic, go back to the identity, the values and principles of the corporate vision. And that is the cooperative way. That's the cooperative way. Thank you.
Right. We have a hand raised by Mr. Nasir Iqbal Mughal from Quetta, Pakistan. Mr. Nasir, would you like to share a comment?
Yes, many thanks from you. I'm Nasir from Quetta, Pakistan. Here I would like to just share the things, whatever we are doing for the cooperatives. Because here in our area, especially in Quetta, Pakistan, we are dealing with the cooperatives. We're working with the horticulture, agriculture, and livestock production. So in this regard, we have a developed number of cooperatives which are dealing with the business independently. Because initially there was a concept of cooperatives are not very good in our society. But with the passage of time and the number of organizations working in the area, like we had the USAID, ASED, and World Bank, and number of other donors, which they are created the cooperatives, and the number of trainings and events they had created. And luckily, I was the member of one of these participants who was involved in the formation, training, and registration of cooperatives with the cooperative department here in Quetta, Balochistan. So here I would just like to share my, you can say, opinion for the cooperative, because cooperative is a thing that where the combination of the different farmers, the farmers having their, you can say this, low background of the production and the less marketing opportunities they got, but after having they become the member of the cooperatives. Now they are feeling well and they are doing their business at very well stages. But we face a lot of difficulties in initial days when we were in a position to formate the cooperatives, because the peoples were not united at the stage. Because they give some number of examples that how can we work together on a mutual understanding. But with the passage of time and having number of trainings over there, we agreed, we did agree to the farmers to become a one platform and do their business on using the combine. So in this regard, initially we developed a pre-cooperative we call the Farmers Marketing Collective. So after having the positive results on the Farmers Marketing Collective, then we converted these collective marketing into the cooperatives. So because they got their registration with the government, from the government, they are now have the opportunities to do their business legally inside the Pakistan or outside of the country. So we developed a number of linkages with the abroad, especially in the Dubai, and we have a very good production of dates in two of our districts, namely KH and Panjgur, where we produce the 35 type of different dates. And that dates we in the international, you can say the forum over there in Dubai, where the people are very much like these dates. And they are interested that how we can link this date producer with the international market. So we are doing some of the work for these producers, that how these producers can be linked with the international market as well. So this kind of, you can say we are doing some of the work at the grassroots level, but I hope that in coming future, we will be able to bring our farmers internationally and do their business widely as well. So in this regard, I have said that I have presented my 2 research papers in the ICA forum. One was in 2016 in Almeria. So for the topic of my paper was cooperative and rural development.
Number 7.
Mr. Nasser, may I request if you could conclude your remarks?
Okay.
Do you have a specific question for the presenter?
No, I just want to share my efforts, or the efforts has been going from our area. So just an introductory. So that's why I'm just.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think it's very useful for us also to learn about the experiences from various countries in the region, and we're very happy to note about the work that you're doing with Producers Collective in Pakistan. We look forward to your continuous engagement with the CCR and see how the CCR can support some of the initiatives, some of the research work in the country.
Yes, that's because we don't have an opportunity here, research work in here in our country. So because many people are there just doing, you can say, the hiding themselves. So in this forum, I think this is a good forum that we can discuss in this.
Indeed. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we have the time only for one last question or reflection, if anyone would like to, or else we can now go to the closing ceremony. So no other hands raised so far.
Balu has raised hand.
Oh, okay. I thought it's the previous one. Sorry. Please.
Sorry to be getting in here. I agree with both. I'm not wanting to get into a debate. Maybe that's something which we can do for a later date. I agree with what Father Anton Pascual said and what Professor Dongre said. But my point is, can we afford to wait to do things in a sequential sense? Or do we need to start doing things in parallel? Because one, the perception about cooperatives in the public domain is not as rosy as we think it should be. So we need to also put out, I think the positive reinforcement is needed in the minds of the public about what cooperatives are and put out all the positive stories out there. So my just point was that we need to be doing things parallelly rather than wait. While I understand some of the issues which you've raised and the importance of that, but I think we need to move in a parallel sense rather than a more sequential sense.
Yes, sir. I agree with you, sir. It's part of our plan also. First things first, we deepen the identity within the sector, but at the same time, we must also have a parallel track, of advocating and promoting the best in the movement for the public to appreciate, because we also plan to build the cooperative economy in the Philippines, for an inclusive Philippines. That's why we have to sell the idea of cooperativism among the Filipinos. Thank you.
All right. So we are at the fag end of the first iteration of the Co-op Colloquium. Again, would like to thank all the participants for sticking through the entire discussion. In fact, just to share with you, before the colloquium, we had close to 64 registrations from around 20 countries, even beyond the Asia Pacific region. And we are very happy to see almost 57, 58 was the number that we were clocking around the entire discussion. So thank you again for being a part of the discussions. I would now hand over the floor to our office bearers, Dr. Sitsel Grimstad and Dr. Onju Choi, the vice chairpersons of the Committee on Cooperative Research, to share their closing remarks on behalf of the organizers. Over to you, Dr. Grimstad.
Yeah, thank you. This has been such an interesting insight into the Filipino cooperative sector, and very inspiring to hear the focus on social impact. I think that's a real wake-up call. I think coming from Australia, we are also working on trying to measure social impact from housing co-ops in the research I'm doing, but that's one thing. But also this kind of whole of sector approach and focus on education is really important, because we see that the cooperative sector in Australia is kind of invisible. Co-ops are alive and thriving, but they are literally invisible in the public domain, and that is something I feel we're all struggling with in a way. So getting those positive stories and those other alternative models out in the public domain is really important, and hopefully with more collaboration in the Asia Pacific, but also global collaboration about and knowledge about the co-op. I feel that this is changing, but I think there needs to be a special strategies to reach young people and maybe women as well. There was a comment in the chat talking about that, and I think the more we can do that, the better. I find the young people in Australia are lacks a lot of knowledge about co-ops, but the minute you start talking about co-ops, they are quite interested, because it's something that it is kind of more a millennial or young people's mindset, and they are used to using their phones on collaborating with everybody anyway. So it's, in a way, the technology helps young people to collaborate. And so I think we need to focus on that aspect really strongly from the cooperative sector. So, but thank you. That book looks wonderful, and I will see how I can get hold of it, and especially the cases. So thank you for fantastic work and a very nice seminar. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Grimstad. May I request Dr. Onju Choi to share her remarks?
Okay, nice to see you, all of you. I'm happy to get some stories about Filipinos cooperative movement, and I think we all have common challenges, like how to manage well with focusing on cooperative values and principles, or how to measure our performance, or we are wondering how many key performance indicators we have, and so on. So I think it is good for us to share our experience more and more. Thank you, and I appreciate Dr. Anton Pascal, and I especially appreciate all of the participants. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you very much then. It was indeed a wonderful session for the first iteration. I see we have Mr. Unal Ornek. Maybe you want to share a last comment before we say goodbye?
Thank you very much. I'm maybe all continent is different. Also, I'm from the COOP Europe side, in Europe side. Thank you very much, Philippine experience, because Philippine experience really is very interesting. I follow many activities in Philippines, and because this kind of countries is a big model for all over the world, for Turkey too. Sometimes I explain the same experience in Turkey, and others, you know, that it's similar position in the world. And thank you very much for everything. Thank you. Thank you for all presentation and good wishes for cooperative movement. Thank you.
Thank you again for being part of this first colloquium, and we look forward to seeing you all in the second iteration, which we will come back with more information in the coming weeks, being planned for the last week of April this year. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Can we have a picture?
Oh yes, we did have a few snapshots, but yes, if we can have you on the screens, we will take some more. Okay, all right. 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Okay,
Great.
God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
God bless. Salamat sa Pilipinas. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Father.
Bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Stay safe.